Hello, how is everyone on their Sunday and how's their weekend going? Really appreciate you taking the time to come and listen about Lebanon, meet me, and ask all the questions that you have regarding the trip or the country in general. And a lot of people are curious about the country. So thanks again for being here. Just want to start by a little background about who I am and what took me to Lebanon. I'm sure you're probably very curious about who I am and why does Lebanon mean so much to me, and why would I be an expert to take you on a group trip. So a little bit of background about me. My name is Jessica Parker. I have been a longtime travel publicist for about 15 years. And over the course of the last few years, I've become a travel advisor in addition to my PR work. And along the way, I found Lebanon. So I'll take it back a minute, if you don't mind, for a little storytelling. I feel like today we want to keep it fun and also share my deep connections and feelings for the country. And I think a little storytelling will help express that. So, about 8 years ago, I was getting quite restless in New York City. I'd been kind of nearing burnout, and I was working in as the director of marketing of hotels. Uh, and as much as I loved the job, it was really taxing, and I just felt at that moment that I needed to refresh and restart. So I quit my job to shocker travel. So I went away for about a month and did a bit of a journey to Sri Lanka, parts of Africa, and then found myself on Zanzibar. And at that time, little did I know, when I got on one of the Doa boats, that the man sitting across from me would change my life forever. He was a lovely German guy, and I think we were a bit love at first sight. And while I was going back to New York, he was going back to Berlin. And we immediately made a plan to see each other. And we had been doing the commute, I should say, between New York and Berlin for a couple years. And as the time went on, he got a job offer within his company to relocated to head up the Beirut office. And when he asked me to come with him, I was a little bit weary because I didn't feel like Lebanon was really much on my radar. I knew enough about the country to feel as though I would make such a big move and change my life to do that. But loved him very much and started researching as I do in my own travel world. And I started finding information, but I do feel it was not that easy, and there weren't that many people doing a lot of tours or things that were searchable on Google. So they use WhatsApp for so many things, or Instagram is their favorite choice for a lot of businesses. So I started figuring out the way they like to promote and be found on the internet. And so I started, okay, I'm going to start making some plans. What do I want to do when I get over there? Because my first trip was really ultimately to see if I could see myself living there as well. And that was in 2017. And so I came on my first trip there, visited him for a couple weeks to get my bearings and to see if I connected with Lebanon. And I did. I really liked it. I did a lot of touring on my own while he worked during the day and felt really connected to the people there. Enjoyed the wine tours. I enjoyed, going to Byblos and Jeta Grotto and joining some of these trips where there was a lot of other expats going on them. And then there were some locals as well, were Lebanese returning and going on the trips. So I got really connected, and I wound up having a friend of a friend who worked there, and I got her connection through the NGO that she worked with, and we met up. And I got a really good taste from her perspective on how much she loved Lebanon, and I was starting to see why. I already felt very much there was a community there, and that definitely drives a lot of my travel decisions too. So as I started going back and then spending longer uh, amounts of time there, I really would just feel more comfortable just renting a car and going away for the weekend, meeting friends in the beach town of Batroun in the north. Um, and while I think my relationship was strained and I had enough personal stuff going on, back in the US, I was feeling a little bit lost, but ultimately, I think my friends and connections in the country really gave me a place of home. And I think that's why I probably am even more deeply connected to it, is because I felt so included. I found community kind of in a point where I felt a little bit lonely, since a lot of that travel and research was really just on my own steam. I did feel pretty lonely. And then I was straddling two continents, time zones for work. And sadly, the terminal illness of my father. So I think at the moment of time, Lebanon came in such a way that I would have never expected. So, excuse me if I'm emotional, but um, I think a lot of my friends there know how much I've really loved it and want to also give back to them for because they made me feel very much at home. And they always laugh that I'm know Lebanon more than they do, the locals, because I just really got so passionate about it. And I really wanted to learn more. My curiosity took me to small towns, took me to the wineries, making plans, and just really, making such good friends there. So I do feel it's got a piece of my heart. So any opportunity I get to go back, I absolutely take it. And the first group trip that I did do was in 2021. Uh, and just a little rewind about the history of the country and give you some backstory of the evolution of Lebanon since I went there in 2017. Since then, there has been an election too, actually, and uh, there was also an incident which maybe not make international news, but there was a big revolution that started in end of 2019. It was started because of a WhatsApp text, but ultimately, it's a matter of the country was a little bit of a political ticking time bomb, and house of cards at that point. So a revolution started. So I got to witness the country kind of turning upside down and asking for what they rightly deserved. And was really hoping for the best. Since then, continues to be complicated, such as my dating life. That's why I bring it up. I love complicated things, apparently. But ultimately, the country's really weathered a lot. And since then, there's been a fuel crisis. There's, the rolling out electrical cuts has always been a thing, honestly, even in the heyday. They've always had an electricity problem, a trash problem. And as much as the locals do and find these creative solutions to recycle or to find a way to adapt, I think they're always, because of the government, and they're just really hamstrung, even when they try to make it better. But that's all to say that they are and will always be survivors. I know they don't like the word. I know my friends don't really want to be survivors. They've lived through the Civil War, and then now they're faced with their current economic situation with the money where it used to be $1 to 1,500 Lebanese pounds, and now it's quite unwieldy. So it's $1 to 70,000. I've even seen it up to over 100,000. So I'm not currently sure what it is today, but it's depleted their financial assets, and diminished everything for them, and yet they're still, living and enjoying their country, and new restaurants have been open since I've been there, and they managed to keep going. And I think that's where I want to come back and give back and show the country the resilience of the people, and just the people that embraced me in kind of a time of need as well. So that's really where the deep connection comes, and I've just watched a lot since I've been there. And yeah, it's very fascinating, and bewitching, and there's something that seeps in your soul about this country. And while I have this trip for 8 days, it was really hard to cut everything down into such a short period. And even talking to you today, just trying to give you a snapshot of what I've experienced and what I love about the country, ranges from the wine, the food, the culture, the history, you name it, this small country, which is, I don't know, it's the size of, I think it's even smaller than Connecticut. You can do the whole country in a day, but certainly I would not recommend it. But you really want to get off the beaten path as well. So ultimately, I based this trip off of what I would think would be the perfect 8 days if I was forced to do so. So I packed in a bunch of my favorite restaurants, neighborhoods, bars, wineries, history stops, and things along the way, my favorite beach town, and it's certainly a labor of love, with Lebanon and this itinerary, but I absolutely adore it, and I hope to take you with me in September. And then ultimately, a lot of great key learnings from friends visiting me over the years, a bunch of them. And then we also had our first group trip with my dear friend Alex in Wonderland, who does Wander Woman retreats. So we were able to pull that trip off despite having to push it back due to COVID. And then ultimately, another lucky moment is that we were not present during the blast, which I'm sure that did make international headlines. The country has semi rebounded from that. There's a lot of reconstruction and things like that. So, like I said, there's a lot of new places that have opened since then. That downtown area is not necessarily the same, I would say, ultimately, but it's still thriving and it's still got that personality when you're standing on the street at a cafe and your friends pass by and are just like, hello, Jess. Like, I haven't even been there that long and I have friends and I see them in such a small degree of separation in Lebanon. Everyone kind of knows each other. So, again, you just feel super embraced. And on our trip in 2021, people would stop their cars and say, "What are you doing here? We're so happy you're here." Especially because we were there in the fuel crisis, and it was a really tough call that we had to make because I want to give this country some visibility and the love that it deserves, but I also know that we don't want to strain their resources as well. So we kind of really are mindful of that, and every time we create these itineraries, especially what businesses we're supporting. We have a couple women-owned businesses. We have some, you know, partnerships where they're supporting the local farmers and hiring women in local towns. So Souk Al Tayeb and Talet and Beit Duma and a lot of these properties really integrate um, these opportunities for people who might not otherwise. And that's really top of mind for me is where's this money going when we do get there. And certainly, I don't think a country should be kind of with a broad paintbrush about their politics or where they're based, because I've seen so many stories of just ambition, creativity come out of this country despite it all. And you know, part of the itinerary is also including local designers as well. Names of like Elie Saab, who's world renowned for fashion, and the women are just amazingly, decked out and dressed fabulously. And quite frankly, very cool, and it always has, and that's why it's been the Paris of the Middle East for such a long time. And while it's wavered lately, it still remains that je ne sais quoi. Like, it is very awesome. I think that you're gonna love this itinerary, and, you know, I can't say enough good things about it, and I keep finding ways that I'm connected to Lebanon. Just the other day, I did an event in Philadelphia, where I'm based, and just happened to figure out that this woman who owns a local wine bar and wine garden here is serving Lebanese wine for a wine tasting the following week. And so I attend and I meet the winemaker, and he, happens to know a bunch of people I know, and I had his wine in Lebanon. I just didn't realize it at a couple of my favorite cafes. So, all things seem to connect. I have friends here in Pennsylvania that, lived in Lebanon as well. A writer friend I've met there who is, this very cool surfer, and she lives in Long Island, but she was there to learn Arabic. And so she brought me into her friend circle, which was so cool. And again, I just think then that would spiral and I'd meet more people, and we're sharing each other's information and hanging at beach parties and watching the sunset, or going to Beirut rap battles, orchestra nights, you name it, gallery openings. There's just such a vibe there that I think is intoxicating. So again, this is me hopefully giving you a snapshot as to why me, why travel with me, what am I going to show you when we're there, and kind of go through the itinerary a little bit. but certainly the website has a really good snapshot of the trip and its core outline as well as the pricing and kind of how we're going about organizing this. So ultimately, the once you get out of Beirut, it's quite they just don't have a lot of hotels that are typical to other big cities and other places. Once you leave Beirut, you're at guest houses, you're at smaller accommodations, and also I think that speaks more truly to the Lebanese experiences are these guest houses. So ultimately, when we leave Beirut, we start to be kind of tightened up with how where we can stay. So we'll go to Al Housh, which is in the Bekaa Valley, and it's an agri farm, and it's quite a cool experience out there. And we'll get to see ancient Roman ruins that are beautifully intact, and you're speechless when you turn the corner and you see um, them and standing in front of you. It's quite amazing. And then that also harbors the Bekaa Valley where a lot of the wineries are, and it's just a lush, beautiful area. We're semi close to the Syrian border, but for safety reasons, obviously, we're being very well managed and kept in certain areas. But I've never really had any nerves on that end anyway. But then we'll stay at Al Housh, and then we're making a bit of a loop around to Duma, and it's a lovely little village that we'll do a cooking class with. When I said Souk El Tayeb, they have these properties called Beit Duma, and that is limited to 6 rooms. So since we're taking the whole place, it's something that becomes a little bit of logistical thing. However, it's a stunning property. I made actually some friends there. This other amazing designer who has taught in Paris fashion houses, Sarah Melky. She was married there the year before, and she was celebrating their year anniversary, her and her husband. And we got to see their photos and this beautiful garden where you can do these big dinners, and it's so quaint yet just and such design forward. Every attention piece of detail is thought of, and it's magical up there. So we'll go through there. We'll also go through Kadisha Valley and the Cedars. They're ancient. So, everything from the Phoenicians, the Babylonians, all used Egyptians use the cedar trees to basically become traders and use them for their ships. So Byblos and the Phoenicians in the phonetic alphabet and Byblos referencing, the Bible. And, that's one of the longest inhabited living city. So you're going to see all these places that are mentioned in the Bible and ancient times and storytelling, and they're all right here and accessible and on these beautiful ports. And we're also stopping Batroun, which is this very laid back kind of town with these beautiful old town and walled city, and a great property there, and some waterfront dining and things like that. And you'll see the true summer that Lebanese are accustomed to. There's the beach clubs, and some are a little bit more parties, some are very laid back and posh. Some are, flip flop friendly and just very chill. So there's a bunch there to experience. There's water sports, and we have some good friends there, some surfers and things. So whatever your fancy is, we can arrange it while we're there. And we've planned as much as we can throughout the itinerary, and also included in the price. So we're trying to really consider all the details, since ultimately Lebanon isn't the easiest to plan. So, which is the reason where I come in and basically show you this amazing itinerary and leave the details to us, leave the worry to us, getting you around. Because when I was exploring the country, I typically did it by car, by myself, which is an experience in and of itself, and still is, especially if there's power cuts and the lights aren't working for a little bit in some areas. But ultimately, I found it an adventure, but not every person wants to just jump right into that or feels wholly comfortable doing that. So I feel like I've done some of the hard work for you, and I'm working with some really amazing businesses that are eager to host my friends that I want to bring back, people that I know, this group in particular. So I think everyone, as soon as I said I'm coming back, it was all hands on deck to put this together. So what I really love to see is this small group, join me. I will be going back to see friends and then want to take time to do this trip. And we're again outside of even just the guest houses being limiting in size. I think it's also a better way to explore in a smaller group. It gives us access to places, it gives us, smoother dining experiences as well. We're able to be a little bit more nimble and such a small group. And you're able to kind of get something a little more personalized on the ground as well. So we're able to accommodate what you need as well. So that's really at heart of how this all came to be. Why me? Why you? And hopefully that, helped with any of your curiosities about the country, answered some questions, and I'm happy to take some questions as well. Also, I had some that were sent to me before. Um, and a friend of mine asked, a little more about the wine in Lebanon, which currently having Marcel's winery, who I was with last week. And there's just, I think there's about 70 wineries across the country, which is an incredible amount for such a small country. So there are tons to explore. And again, it was really hard to narrow it down. I do have in there a visit to St. Thomas, Chateau St. Thomas, and it's a wonderful property with an amazing cool cellar and female winemakers. They also have the Obeidi grape, which is purely Lebanese. They've done their research to find the origins of it, which Marcel also focuses highly on is really the Lebanese grapes and not a lot of, because there's a lot of French influence on almost everything. Obviously, via their occupation and relationship with France, a lot of people, as you'll find out, speak French, Arabic, and English, and sometimes in the same sentence. So they're typically French educated as well. So that also influenced their wine. So in many cases, it's influenced them in a great way, obviously with their history, but we also, or they also have a ton of history with wine too. So uh, each winery has a different take on things. Chateau Moussard is one of the probably ones that really put them on the map internationally. So we definitely give credit where credit is due, and using some of the traditional stuff, you know, ways of making wine, but there is so many. So it's really hard to cut it down. But I think we've got a couple of good picks in there, and we'll certainly touch that as well as food. You're just going to experience throughout the trip, no matter what. And then if there's any vegetarians or anyone with dietary restrictions, we can always handle those as soon as you do a commitment to the trip and make sure that that's taken care of. But vegetarian and the like are pretty easy since it's such a it's on the Mediterranean, and a lot of vegetables and spices and things of that nature are involved, and you don't really need to worry too much. There is mixed grill and meats and things like that, but I think that there's plenty of options for our veggies who would be interested in coming. So wanted to tackle that question. And like I said, the trip is quite tight. We have a couple interested in spots booked. And ultimately, I do see this as an opportunity for some solo travelers to come and experience a country that's otherwise maybe a little bit more challenging as a solo traveler to execute. So once we get the group locked in and people who are attending and their personalities, we're going to do our due diligence of pairing people so there's no one paying a single occupancy price, because that can always cause extra expense to us solo travelers. And I've been there. I travel a lot by myself too, and that's always such a pain when you have to pay the solo fees and things like that. So we want to make sure it's really accommodating, tons of value with the food and dining and experiences built in. Also, another cool one is that I don't think that's been on anyone else's itinerary is doing a wine tasting on a boat out at Byblos, which is going to be great. So really incorporating things that I think are quite exceptional. And if you're looking for bragging rights, I think Lebanon is one of them. If you're well traveled, this will be definitely a notch in your cap. So I hope this is just elevates your understanding of the region, the culture, and just walking away feeling completely changed, like I was. And I know 8 days is hard to do, but I think if you ask some of my friends who came and the girls on the Wonder Woman retreat, we're certainly still advocates of the country and still talk about it. And I'm still in touch with a lot of them too. So I feel immensely lucky to help advocate for the country. And I hope that has sold you to join us in September. And again, because it's in summer, it's hard to get occupancy. So we did end up doing it in September over our holiday in the US, which I'll because we're very much limited on vacation days typically, hopefully that will earn an extra day to join us and extend as much time as you need. You can certainly come early, you can stay longer. And anyone that wants to do either of those things or even tack on another country in the area, such as Jordan, Egypt, Dubai, or anything like that, that can be done. And we'll just do it on a custom case basis when someone reaches out based on their budget. But that's certainly the case if someone does have the luck of being able to go for a little bit longer. I know I certainly will be staying longer on both ends as well. And then have a wedding in Mykonos right afterwards and later in September. So while I'm over in the area and on the Mediterranean, I'll just pop on over. But I feel as though that's always been the case when I lived there is actually was really accessible, to these amazing countries that normally are such a haul from the US. So hopefully that will tease an idea to potentially extend your trip. But I feel like I've rambled on for 30 minutes, but hopefully packed a lot of information in. I hope you were sipping some wine as well, and getting a lot out of this. And this gave you a good taste of what to experience and what's to come if you sign up. Ultimately, the next steps would be also, which I'll open up to questions if there are any, is that you set up a trip call with me and we run through any questions that you'd like to ask privately and not on this public forum, which is also fine. And we'll talk through kind of the requirements of the trip because we do advise getting trip insurance. And a big note is that if you do have a stamp from Israel, you will unfortunately not be able to enter with that passport. You need a second passport, and that's been the case for a long time. So unfortunately, that's something we can't get around. So we'll run through all those things to make sure that everything is in line. You feel comfortable, you're excited, and then ultimately take the deposit. And then we will do a final payment 90 days before travel, which will put us at about early June, beginning of June. So that's ultimately the flow. And then for anyone that is on this stream right now and you're local in Philadelphia, where I am hosting a wine tasting at Jet Wine Bar and their wine garden that just opened for the season, which I'm really excited about, with Marcel Wines and a few others, and Adak, which is the local anise aperitif that they serve on hand, which is great. And again, Jill, who's the owner, who I just happened to meet here in Philadelphia just before it all pointed to have to have something there, have to have you guys for, a real in-person taste of Lebanon locally in Philadelphia. So that's April 13th. So that's a Thursday from 6 to 8. So I'll be including the tasting and some bites. And then you're welcome to mingle with some of my other clients, some of my friends who will be there, people who are interested in the trip, get to know your potential travel buddies. So that's really the exciting part about bringing in an in-person opportunity if you're local. And I guess at this point, I think I've dropped down in some of the banners, basically where you can find details on the trip. You can also find on tripwhisper.co details about that wine event too and RSVP. So hopefully that is a good landing page for both of those things and information. You can follow me at Trip Whisper on pretty much every social channel, and I will, I'm sure, be posting more. I'll be posting a thorough blog post and some more content. So don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to me at Jessica at tripwhisper.co as well. Set up a time on my calendar. I obviously talk about Lebanon a ton, but sell travel everywhere. And so happy to talk to you about what your travel goals too. But ultimately, I hope Lebanon is now on your bucket list. I'm going to see if there's any questions, comments. I see some people being tagged in here. Okay. Let me see. One question here. I'm trying to see. Booking flights. Okay. So Um, it depends on where you're coming from, obviously. I, from Philadelphia, typically like to take Qatar through Doha. I love that airline very much. But if you're on the East Coast, out of New York is usually a really good way to go. They have a lot of connections through Paris, London, Turkey are some really good routes to do. And also, if you want to add in a little Paris beforehand, I wouldn't be mad at you. I think that's a great idea. Paris is always a good idea. But that's a really good route, and obviously because of the connection of France and Lebanon, typically there's a lot of great flight options. MEA, the Middle East airline, is Lebanese and quite good. So it might be obviously foreign to you and you've never flown them before, but you can feel confident with MEA. I've flown them a bunch within the region and connecting as well. But Qatar is definitely my go-to, and certainly I could help with my air department. You just have to send an inquiry through if you really were trying to figure out navigating connections and things like that. But certainly the options again in September are also a little bit better than peak summer for them. So hopefully it'll be more cost effective because we're going in September as well for you. So I saw that on air. And again, yes, if you want to come early, stay late, you are most welcome to. And feel free to reach out to me if you want any logistic help with that. And also, for when you get there, we have airport transfers set up to and from. And Lebanon is a funny has a funny way of not really having addresses. Even when I had my apartment, we had delivery guys, and we had to kind of give this kind of hilarity of charades and locations that are nearby our house. They just don't have like street names and addresses. So instead of having to worry about haggling and having cash available already converted to Lebanon, we have that all taken care of for you. And ultimately, when you sign up for the trip, I'll send a very detailed trip itinerary and what to tip, what's the current exchange rate, how much extra cash you might want for personal use or souvenirs. At this point, not terribly much, since so much is included in the itinerary, but you want to be able to have and come with cash because ultimately we would not recommend you convert a bank there or here because you are going to get dinged with a not so great conversion rate. So we'll help advise you through all of that as well. So as like I said, the currency changes almost daily, and as we get closer, we will give you a more accurate update on that. And ultimately, at this point, well, we'll have some the terms and conditions when it comes to PCR tests, and there could be additional. Right now, it seems like we're all in the clear on that, which is great. Last time we had to have a nurse come up and take care of us all, but whenever you need something, the Lebanese have a solution for everything. So we made it work last time, and went smoothly. So we'll be there for all the aspects, all the questions, adapting on site, being your real guide. And happy to help you with whatever you need. Michelle, okay. How much would airfare be? Well, again, it would definitely depend on if you're what days you're coming in and where you're coming from. I'm Michelle guessing that you're coming from New York since I know you. But they shouldn't be that bad. I was looking at mine from Philadelphia. I think they're about $1,100, so almost like 600 each way. And I would think that you would be in a better position coming out of New York, and also time wise in flight, you would be in a better position to fly. Most likely from JFK, probably via Air France. You will have a shorter connection and flying time. Ultimately, if you're New York, you're very lucky because you got the three airports and many options. So hopefully that will be reasonable for you, but certainly we can touch base. And if you need help, let me know. All right. I think these are all the questions that I think I've tackled. If there's anything else, I am available on social media, via email, and we're going to start locking in folks very soon. So, with the limited spots, we hope to get you in there. At least feel free to reach out just if you're interested and just need a little more time to give it some thought and you want to be reached out to before we fill the spaces, please do so. It's always good for me to know if you're even considering it and really looking at dates, vacation days, budget, and all that stuff, because there's a lot that comes with it. Certainly, couples and friends that want to travel together, it would be a great opportunity. I know a couple um, friends and couples that are interested. And so at this point, we're just really excited to lock this in, fill the trip, and be able to find other travel buddies along the way and show you Lebanon. So I guess if there's no other questions, what the good thing is that this has been recorded and should be on Facebook and on YouTube. So ultimately, I will be sharing this afterwards for anyone that missed it and all the other resources that we talked about, and happy to answer questions offline and in person in Philadelphia if you're available on Thursday, April 13th at Jet Wine Bar. So again, thank you all for being here on a Sunday. It's beautiful here in Philly, so I hope to get back outside. I hope you are as well. Have a great rest of your weekend. Really appreciate you for being here, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.